It is time to start back up the college football every game on the board podcast with today's first guest, Teddy Covers. Teddy, welcome in.
Hey, great to be here, Drew.
Yeah, great to have you on, man. You're absolutely killing it across the gridiron here, Teddy. We got, a perfect 8-0 weekend. How's it feel?
It felt good, but, I mean, you know me, Drew. I don't enjoy success. All I want to do is work more. And that's the truth of it. I mean, it's been a great weekend last week. It's been a great month. It's been a great season. I started 18-2 this football season. I mean, it's been really good from the get-go. But that doesn't do us any good this week. You know, that's all rearview mirror stuff now, man. If you don't keep focused on the task at hand, which is picking the games in front of you, not gloating about the games behind you, it's really hard to maintain extended hot streaks. And this has been a really good extended hot streak through the first, 6-7 weeks of the season.
Absolutely, Teddy. And on today's podcast here with your segment, we're going 3-3-1, 3-3-2, Michigan State, all the way down to 3-5-5, 3-5-6, Tulsa versus Arkansas. If you're following on the college football board here, the odds page on sportsmemo.com. And just to summarize what Teddy's done so far this season, 87% in October for football, 100% big tickets in the NFL year to date. And, throwing those big numbers out here, Teddy, last, certainly not least, it is least, but 65% in college football. It's almost like you're not doing well enough in college football. 65%, man.
Yeah, and that's those full season numbers. You know, when you're at 77% in the NFL and when you hit, 87% so far in football in October and you're perfect with the big tickets and all that kind of stuff, the 65% gets, you're like, what is that? But, hey, if I finish the college football season hitting 65%, I'll feel pretty great about what I accomplished. So far, so good in that regard.
Yeah, 65% in the college football. It's almost like, what's wrong on the college side?
I'm trying, brother. I'm trying. Well, we swept it last week, and let's see if we can do it again. That's all rearview mirror, man. We've done well. No question. The clients are happy. My bankroll's feeling pretty good. But it's not about what we've done. It's about what we're going to do, and that all comes down to handicapping this weekend's card. Let's get into some of these games.
Yeah, well said, Teddy. Let's get after it. And guys, before we start, we got Teddy20 is the coupon code. That's TEDDY 20 for $20 off any of his all-access services. We got 3-3-1, 3-3-2 here. Big brother versus little brother. I know you know a lot about this rivalry. Michigan at Michigan State. Looks like Michigan laying 7 on the highway in East Lansing. 40.5 the total, Teddy.
Well, I mean, it was a big brother versus little brother rivalry, but it hasn't been that way for decades now. Certainly not since Lloyd Carr left town for the Wolverines. Michigan currently on a 2-8 straight up, 0-10 ATS run against their in-state rivals from East Lansing. And from a value standpoint, this one really stands out to me. All right? Michigan last week, we talked about it here on the show. We're like, Wisconsin's banged up. Wisconsin's not that good. Wisconsin might be a little bit overrated. And the Wolverines smashed them. And the national media says, Michigan's great. Not, Wisconsin stinks and Wisconsin was injury-riddled and all of that. So what happens? You see the betting market support for the Wolverines. Opener 6.5, now sitting at 7. Now, there are concerns. I got a lot of concerns. I don't know how Michigan State moves the football in this ballgame. Wolverines, number 2 overall defense, number 9 in points allowed. They can't run on them. You can't throw on them. And in particular, you can't run on them because Michigan State's offense is fairly one-dimensional. Brian Lewerke is not throwing the football all over the field. He's a mediocre college quarterback. And if you can't run the football, Michigan State's likely to really have problems putting points on the board. That being said, Spartans' defense is no joke. Michigan's played 2 road games this year. They came out and got smacked at Notre Dame, bad start. They went to Northwestern, bad start. Managed to win that one by a field goal. Never sniffed a point spread cover in either of those contests. And you're laying a premium with the Wolverines here in a series where the dog has dominated. And dominated, 10-0 ATS for D'Antonio. So, it's... I don't want the Wolverines. The Spartans are passed for me. But, of course, a total of 40 and a half even at some books. It's hard for me to get the window laying a touchdown on the road, even though I can't figure out in my head how the home dog's going to score. Maybe the under might be the best bet, but, God, I'm not betting under 41 in college football. I'm not going to do it.
Teddy, next game up, we're staying in the Big Ten. We got Ohio State laying 12 on the highway at Purdue, 68.5 the total.
Yeah, my first reaction to this line, oh my God, Purdue. Got to look at Purdue. Purdue.
Yeah,
this
is their number's not as big as I thought it would be.
It's not even close to being as big as I thought it was going to be. And when you really start to look at Purdue, you don't want them. I didn't want them. Let's break it down. All right, Boilers. Yeah. Purdue has played one good game against a decent team, Boston College. Boston College, everything else that Purdue's done has been against weak opposition, flat out. Whatever. And the game against Northwestern, they didn't win that game. I guess they played well against Missouri. They didn't win that game. But the win and cover they had is Boston College. Nebraska, Illinois, that doesn't impress me in the same way. And reading some game plan from Jeff Brom, he thinks Blau can throw the football against Ohio State. They're going to try to throw. Minnesota had a really successful game plan last week against the Buckeyes. They just ran the football, killed clock, kept the game close for as long as they could, and covered wire to wire. Never in doubt. Purdue's not going to do that. They're going to lengthen the game as opposed to shortening it if they chuck the football around here. And maybe they can have some success against Ohio State's secondary. They've shown some vulnerability at times this year, but 4 quarters worth of success, no way. And when you look at Haskins and what he's done and what the Ohio State receivers, how well they match up against the Boilers secondary, Ohio State, they've been approaching 50 on a regular basis. I expect them to, be able to put up points in bunches here as well. I don't see Purdue getting stops, maybe the over. So I started out leaning Purdue and ended up leaning over. I might get to the window. Haven't done it yet. But that's the only way I would bet this one right now is look at the Ohio State and Purdue over the total.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if Purdue's going to lengthen the game, throw the ball around. Obviously the clock's stopping more. It's sitting at 68.5, so the market in agreement with you. I'm guessing what that article was something that's pretty findable for handicappers.
I mean, when I'm searching for local news reports, the one thing that obviously there are 2 things that I'm going to do. One is I follow a ton of beat writers on Twitter. That's my job. I got to find out what's the news when it comes out, and that's why people pay to have a full-time handicapper doing their service for them, so that they follow everything on Twitter, what's going on. So I do get a lot of the links from Twitter, and then I always Google News search. I'll Google News. I'll usually use one coach and then the opposing team's name, and then I'll Google News the other coach with the opposing team's name, and you find sometimes articles that you missed that way. So that's my methodology entirely for finding local news sources. That's it. Twitter and Google News. If you use those 2, I don't know, am I giving away too many secrets? Of course not. It's just time consuming. But that's the way to track local info and get good info on these articles.
Teddy, this time let's head down to the SEC. We got Alabama at Tennessee, 29.5. Bama's laying on the road, 57.5 the total. Yeah,
and Tennessee, what the heck happened last week? They look like a real team. And I'm like, okay, is this what we're going to see now from Tennessee, where they're a competitive football team, where they're capable of pulling off an upset, where they're not, the bottom feeder that they looked like, what's his name, Guarantano? He threw for 328 yards and a couple of touches against Auburn last week. That was impressive, The
he's
defense,
pretty good. He can throw it.
Yeah, well, he hadn't had 200 yards passing in a game in any game, including against UTEP and East Tennessee State and all of that coming in. And he threw for 328 last week. The series history doesn't favor Tennessee. The Vols have really, in the big step up in class games, because, last week's, Auburn hasn't lived up to expectations. But when Tennessee's asked to play like the Georgias or the Alabamas of the world of late, they have not been effective. But I'm telling you right now, Bama covered last week. Again, a complete domination, start to finish. Both sides of the football, Bama dominates. They covered by a hook. Can't make money betting on Alabama. There's no money to be made betting on the Crimson Tide. And it's a matter of, do you have the guts to stand in front of them? I don't know if I do this week, given the track record between these 2 schools.
You like anything with the total? I've kind of had a view of betting Alabama over the total, just with their offense and being able to run up the score. But I haven't bet this one yet. Do you have any opinion on 57?
Well, the problem, of course, this is a Tennessee offense that literally had done nothing. The quarterback wasn't throwing the football. They scored 24 against UTEP.
Yeah.
Didn't move the ball well against Florida. Didn't move the ball well against Georgia. They had 209 total yards and 11 first downs against Georgia. I can't bet the over, given that track record against elite defenses and bad defenses. Last week there may be a buy sign there. on the offense. There might be, really. But against Alabama, I don't know if I want to buy. You know what I mean? I'll pass this game. I'm not going to get involved.
Teddy, let's head up to the MACtion for the next 3 games. We got EMU, Eastern Michigan at Ball State. Looks like Eastern laying 3 in Muncie, 47 the total.
Yeah, I mean, what does Eastern Michigan do? Every game they play is decided by 3 points.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, what they have, look at their season. They beat Purdue 20-19. The game in Buffalo, wasn't that an overtime game? They lost by a touchdown? It was tied late, I know that. San Diego State, they lose by a field goal. Northern Illinois, they lose by a field goal. Western Michigan, they lose by a field goal. Toledo, they win by 2 after the missed 2-point conversion. I mean, it's this Eagles team has impressed me in the fact that, A, they lost all those games tight, and they haven't quit, and they're still fighting, and they did it again last week, although they ran out of gas in the second half. They were up 28-3 against the Rockets last week and had to hang on for the victory. But, they're not a sexy team. All they're going to do is hand the ball off, grind out yards on the ground. But Ball State's the kind of team you should probably be able to do that against. I'm not excited about the prospect of laying a field goal with Eastern, but Eagles are the better of these 2 teams by a wide margin. And I know they haven't won anything by margin, but this is a step down. Think about it again. They played Purdue, Buffalo, San Diego State, Northern Illinois, Western Michigan, and Toledo. All those teams, tight games, but all those teams are better than Ball State, particularly on the defensive side of the football. Every single one of them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And you bring up Toledo, their next team up. They're hosting Buffalo here. Buffalo's been good. They have had a couple, or at least one spot where they didn't really show up, I believe, against Army. But either way, the Bulls are laying 1 on the highway, 60.5 the total, Teddy.
Yeah, and I mean, the game against Army, again, they just come off a blowout win over Temple. And we'll talk about, oh no, we're not going to talk about Army. Army's pretty good. So you can, that's one of those games that you don't want to overreact and panic to. Look, Tyree Jackson's been great for Buffalo, flat out great. And the completion percentage isn't there, but 18-5 T to the INT ratio, and the key is the big plays are there. What's the receiver? Osborne and Johnson. They got these 2 receivers, both of them, that are averaging what? One's averaging 18 yards reception, the other's averaging 17. So they're getting the big plays. The running game has been there. Marks and Patterson both averaging better than 5.5 yards per carry. The defense has been there for the Buffalo Bulls. This team's 6-1. They're in first place, and the one thing we know about the MAC, this is not a conference where Northern Illinois has been really good for a long time. The teams the teams cycle in and out in the MAC. Central Michigan was great for a while. Miami, I remember Big Ben when Rothberg was there, was great for a while. I mean, on and on down the line. You can go through. Bowling Green was the best team in the MAC. I mean, you can literally go through the last 2 decades since I've been in Vegas, and I can tell you 8 different teams that at various times were the best team in this conference. Buffalo might be that team this year. Toledo was that team. I don't know if they are anymore. I can understand all the money is coming on the Bulls.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, Toledo, when you think about the Rockets, it's almost like you think they're the best team. They've been throwing it around for years, and you think that it would hold up for a half a season now, even if they weren't, say a top 3 team in the MAC.
When you talk about I don't understand the question. What would hold up for a full season?
Like the betting market view on Toledo being a top 3 team in the MAC, even if they're in the middle somewhere.
Oh, well, I mean, no, it'll gradually slide. Well, I found the most success that I've had in the MAC is finding the one team that was bad or mediocre that's now good. Buffalo is that team this year. And if you've been riding Buffalo, you've been making money flat out from the get-go. On the other hand, the way that I made money in the MAC is you take the team that was great last year and lost everybody, and you bet against them, or good last year. And boy, there have been a lot of examples. Remember Ball State was good one year for a couple of years, and then they lost everybody, and boom, they were a clear bet against. And Central Michigan was that way, and Toledo isn't fallen at that level where they're all right. This is an auto fade. We're gonna where they've gone from one of the best teams to one of the worst teams. Toledo's just gone from one of the best teams to a pretty good team. They haven't had the complete fall off.
makes a lot of sense. Teddy, last action here, we got Akron at Kent State. I believe Kent State had a run where they won the MAC, or maybe were runner-up in the MAC a few years back, but either way, I don't believe they're very good this year, although starting that up-tempo offense this year. Akron at Kent State, looks like Akron laying 5.5 on the road, 52 the total, Teddy.
Yeah, and the Zips, are still getting power rated for that win at Northwestern and the cover at Iowa State. And I'm telling you, I had them in that game at Northwestern. And they won the game straight up as 3-touchdown underdogs. They were down 21-3 at the half, and Northwestern came out in the second half and just fell asleep, and the defense made a couple of plays. And Akron's defense is capable of making plays. Their offense isn't very good. I can't lay this price for them on the road. And the fact that they won that game, and then the next week at Iowa State, when the Cyclones were in an equally bad spot and equally not interested, and they hung tough there, I just think there's a little bit of a premium that you're laying with the Zips that I'm just not willing to lay. They're not a let's lay more than a field goal with them on the highway type of ball club.
All right, Teddy, let's head to the Big Ten for the next two. Penn State at Indiana. Looks like 14.5 or 15, 61.5 the total.
I don't know what to do with this game. It's a very interesting game. I've been reading some stuff on Penn State, and I don't get the sense that they're going to this is a Nittany Lions team that lost the heartbreaker to Ohio State. And then they had the bye, and then they came out and were flat. And that's not a good sign. And you even go back before that, the game against Illinois, where they were trailing in the second half. And then, of course, went nuts in the fourth quarter with 5 unanswered touchdowns. But, the game, even the blowouts, the Pitt and the Kent State, a lot of big plays, all big plays. The Nittany Lions are capable of doing that, and they may be capable of doing that against Indiana. Indiana got roughed up last week against Iowa. They've been pretty feisty. They're not a team I'm looking to necessarily step in front of. That being said, there has been a class difference between these two squads in recent years. 29-7 in 2015, 45-31 in 2016, and last year, 45-14. I just don't I don't know what I'm going to see from Penn State this week, and that definitely makes me reluctant to lay the 2 touchdowns. But the fact that Indiana was struggling to compete at the line of scrimmage against Iowa, that's not a good sign necessarily moving forward as they step up in class.
Teddy, we got 345, 346. Illinois at Wisconsin. Looks like 55.5 the total. The Illini catching 24.5 in Camp Randall on Saturday. Yeah,
it's another pick your poison kind of game. I'm not excited. I'm really not excited about this one. Again, Wisconsin off a blowout loss in which everything stunk, but this team is banged up all over the place on both sides of the ball. Wisconsin with one injury after the next. Given that spot, I can't lay with Wisconsin. I don't know they're going to come out with fired up here. I'm not necessarily getting that sense from the Badgers. And Illinois, look, I always say I don't want to lose money. I don't want to be, it makes me mad when I lose money with bad football teams because I know they're bad and I know they're going to screw up, and then it happens. And when I lost money with Illinois in that Penn State game when they played great for 2.5 quarters and then just flat out collapsed, that's what Illinois is going to do, and you have to accept that. So you could easily see a situation. If I'm taking the Illini, I'd probably be a first half bet. Talking about a full game. We've seen them die more than once in the second half. And, of course, Wisconsin matches up pretty well against them. The Badgers, in theory, should be able to hand the ball off and have success putting points on the board without even having to try to air it out. But all that being said, 2 of the last 3 meetings between these two teams have been highly competitive. However, the one at Camp Randall, Wisconsin 48, Illinois 3.
Means a lot right there. But we got 347, 348. Houston at Navy. Looks like Houston 11.5 across the board, 60.5 the total, Teddy.
Navy's broken. I found this out the hard way, unfortunately, when they went to Air Force, and I couldn't have been more wrong on I don't know that I have been more wrong on a game than that one this year.
You learn from your mistakes.
But yeah, and I'm mad at myself for not betting against them last week because I saw it. But when you lose a big ticket and then you're like, all right, I'm going to fade this team the next week. You're like, sometimes you feel like you're overreacting. And it wasn't like Temple covered with room to spare. They covered by a hook off a late touchdown. But the fact is, Navy had the lead. Navy blew the game. Navy's offense didn't work. They had 9 first downs and 178 yards against Air Force. They had 284 total yards against Temple. No big plays in that game at all. That's a problem against Houston's defense. Houston has allowed more points than I expected them to this season, even with Ed Oliver blowing up plays on the line of scrimmage. But that's been about pace. They're playing so fast. And I remember, has to be, 3 years ago now. I remember I had Navy as another losing bet on Navy. Thank you very much. Navy as a big ticket at Houston, and thinking that late in the season, thinking that it was just too much for Ward and Navy's would be there. And Houston offensively was able to outclass Navy's secondary. I don't think that's changed. I'm not surprised the Cougs are taking money, and I could only look at the Houston side in this ballgame. Total-wise, I trust Houston to score. I don't trust Navy to score right now. This is not the same Navy team, and it feels like there's something wrong in the locker room, which is not something I'm used to seeing from Navy.
Yeah, from any military academy. You don't see that very often. But we'll move down the list. 349-350, UTEP at Louisiana Tech. Looks like this one totaled at 48, with La Tech laying 23.5 at home.
Yeah, and I mean, La Tech bounced back nicely last week. And no surprise. I probably should have had that on my card. It was on my short list, and I didn't get there, and it kind of made me mad because they had such a dominating performance against a lesser foe, which is what they are capable of doing. But this minor squad, I still have them power rated at or near the bottom of college football. But I'm telling you, they've been covering some numbers. They hung at North Texas. The defensive performances have been solid. 4 straight weeks that they've been solid on the defensive end, and they're also coming in with extra time to repair. So La Tech's a team you like as a dog. You don't necessarily love to lay big points with Skip Holtz's squad. And I don't like to lose money with the very worst teams in college football, but I have been impressed, and noticeably impressed, with what UTEP's been able to do on the defensive side. And of course, totals 23. The total's 48 in the game with this line at 23.5. The markets are saying if the Miners can get a couple of touchdowns, they're live to cover this number.
Same type profile here. Teddy, you bring up worst teams in the country. 351 Rice might qualify for one of those. We got Rice at FIU here, 53.5 the total, with FIU laying 23.5 at home in Miami.
There's a difference, though. UTEP's gotten better. Rice has gotten worse. Rice came out. I remember in the opener, I'm like, wow, look where they moved the ball against Houston up and down the field. 22 first downs, 439 yards. The next week at Hawaii, I know they lost, but the offense moved the ball up and down. Another game where they had 21 first downs and 446 yards. Since then, they don't have 20 first downs in any game. They gained more than 262 yards once against Wake. It's not an offense that's working. And when you don't score, eventually the defense starts to wear down. FIU's not a team I want to lay 21.5 with. Or what is it? I mean, it's even more than that, isn't it? 23.5.
Right.
That's not the price range that I want for Butch Davis' squad. I know that I like them in some roles. They've been disappointing to me because I haven't played them enough. FIU has been a solid money maker. They're good, but they're not a lay 23.5 type. The offense isn't explosive. It's not efficient. They're not filled with big plays. I just don't trust them in this price range, so I'm not going to get there. The other thing is that nobody's betting Rice right now, so the markets really have crashed on that squad. And in theory, there's value on the Owls this week after last week's complete annihilation.
Teddy, we got 2 games left. One. What do you call Louisiana Lafayette? Do you call them Lafayette, or Louisiana?
I've always called them La. That's just my personal. That's my personal nickname. But whatever. I call the Seahawks the Seabags, and we all have weird names for teams. I was called ULL La. But that's just I call them UL Lafayette or La. I don't know what I call them. Lafayette.
I
Louisiana.
They were making a push to just be called the University of Louisiana in the offseason, but I guess the betting boards haven't made the switch because they're still going UL Lafayette. But either way, they're at App State this weekend. They're in Boone, North Carolina, so playing in elevation. Boone, I believe, is the highest elevation east of the Mississippi for Division I colleges, but it's 68.5 the total. Looks like App State, and Teddy, I've been surprised by this team. I lost on them against Arkansas State. I took the points with Arkansas State, and they got blown out. So I'm trying to reassess here, but I'm not looking to go against App State. They're laying 25 at home, however. How do you view this one?
Hell no, I'm not going against App State. I mean, you think about their season, all right? Week 1, they took Penn State on the ropes. Admittedly, it was a fourth quarter rally. It was an onside kick recovery, but it was Penn State on the ropes in Happy Valley. Since that time, they won 45-7, 42-7, 52-7, and 35-9. All right. Offense getting the job done. Defense getting the job done. 5-0 ATS. Those aren't the teams I'm looking to stand in front of. And Lafayette off back-to-back. It's been back-to-back solid efforts for the Raging Cajuns. A team that looked really bad in non-conference play. I guess the Coastal Carolina game stood out to me. Certainly the Mississippi State game, especially since the Bulldogs haven't done anything since that. But the last couple of weeks, they put up 759 yards against New Mexico State, 557 against Texas State. Good signs. Maybe a buy sign there on Lafayette against a team that's 5-0 ATS. That the point spread value isn't with Appalachian State the way that it was a month ago. So, yeah, I don't want to step in front of Appalachian State, but give me a free bet on this game. I'll take the Raging Cajuns all day long.
All right, Teddy, we got one more game left, guys. Remember the coupon code for Teddy covers here, Teddy20 for $20 off any of his all-access services for this week and this month or 90 days, whatever you want, off of a perfect 8-0 football week. 65% in college football. That is his lowest stat going to throw out because he's 87% October football. So really just killing it all over. But last game up here, Teddy, 355-356 Tulsa at Arkansas. 56 the total with the Razorbacks laying 7 at home.
So when I'm making my numbers, the first thing I'm going to go through all the college box scores one by one, and then I go through all the the box score and recap one by one, and I adjust my numbers for each team. And then you look at the next week's card, and you start team A, team B, power rating, and just scroll them down. And I'm writing down this number. I'm like, wait a minute. Arkansas 5.5 over that. My number was 5.5. 5.5 over Tulsa. Like I circled it. It stood out like a sore thumb. I'm like, this can't be right. It's got to go higher than that. Well, it opened 3.5, and it got bet up to 7, and it might go higher. Some of the leading indicator books are saying that just because from a pure power rating standpoint, it doesn't feel like Tulsa should be able to hang within a touchdown of Arkansas. And in theory, Arkansas is supposed to smack the shit out of this team. It's a get well game for Arkansas, in theory. But as I'm like, all right, well, yeah, we got to look at Arkansas. Of course you look at Arkansas. They got the team speed edge, yada, yada. And I wouldn't be shocked if Arkansas kills them. I wouldn't. That being said, Arkansas is coming off another crushing defeat. Remember, they had Mississippi on the ropes last week. They let that game go in the last 4 minutes. A game they wanted, a game they needed, a game they were dying for, and they just flat out let go of the rope. This is a team that lost to Colorado State. They've lost at home to North Texas already. And Tulsa plays defense. So you say, can we trust the Razorbacks? Do they care enough? Are they? Obviously, the transition to Chad Morris hasn't gone well. Obviously, the recruiting there in recent years hasn't gone well. And the one thing that Tulsa does, we saw them do it against Texas on the road. We saw them do it against Temple on the road. We saw them even do it against Houston a little bit. They can play defense. They played some high-octane, up-tempo, quality offenses, and they've been able to hang tough. South Florida, another one where they, were in control. They lost the game. What's Tulsa now? 1-5, 1-6. They're not a great team, but in this point spread range, at an SEC foe, gosh, I'm not going to get involved in the game. I'm not. It's just one of those games that the point spread really stood out to me, and I didn't make it better early. I'm certainly not going to lay 7 now. The markets have already moved. But I will say this, side and total correlate here. Arkansas correlates with over. Tulsa is not going to hang around in a shootout in this game. They're going to cover. This game's likely to stay under the total.
All right, Teddy. Well, I don't want to say anything that will jinx you because you've been running hot. Anything you want to throw out there before we shut this down and get on to the next handicapper?
Sure. I'd say thanks for listening. Best of luck this weekend. Enjoy the games, and hopefully make a few bucks together. Good luck.
All right, guys, check out sportsmemo.com and the coupon code Teddy20 for $20 off any of his services at sportsmemo.com. We'll be right back with Kyle Hunter to continue 357 on the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast.